Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Moneycontrol at Davos 2024, our daily bulletin where we bring you a roundup of all the top voices we speak to here at the World Economic Forum. It's been a very good mix of global and Indian voices in the last few days, and that trend continues on our show today. Geopolitics and AI continues to dominate discussions here at Davos. The Ukrainian president addressed delegates here as well, and nearly everyone is talking about how they're going to be using AI. Now, we're going to start the show this evening with views coming in from two big global CEOs. The first one is YouTube CEO Neil Mohan. Now, I had a chance to ask him a question on how YouTube plans to combat deepfake videos, especially in an election year. Almost a third of humanity is going to go into polls this year, and the elections in India too are happening in 2024, and deepfakes, people are already complaining about it. Now, in response to my question, YouTube CEO Neil Mohan said that while generative AI can do amazing things, it has also brought down the cost of producing content in the hands of bad actors to almost zero. So he said that YouTube is going to be bold, it's going to be responsible, and it's going to be incredibly vigilant as people go into elections, not just in India, but in countries around the world. So that was our global voice number one. Now, the second big global technology voice is IBM CEO Arvind Krishna. Now, in a session on India's digital public infrastructure, Arvind Krishna spoke about how India is going to be at the forefront of AI deployment. He also said that the digital public infrastructure that India has put in place will enable India to effectively train people in big and small cities. He also lauded the Indian government's efforts when it came to AI and their efforts in setting up AI centers of excellence. So those are the words coming in from the global CEOs of YouTube as well as IBM. With that, let's go right to the interviews that we have lined up for you today. First up then is the DIPP Secretary Rakesh Singh. Now he's here representing India, pitching India to global investors, to global business houses. We caught up with him to understand what's playing on investors' minds. While people are talking about how India is a bright spot, what are the gaps, what are the concerns? He spoke about how tax administration, stability in policy making are some of the asks from investors. We also asked him to give us an update on Tesla's India investment plans. Let's listen in. Are there also concerns about, series of tax notices that companies have been getting that perhaps we have an overzealous tax administration? Is that a point of concern at all?
I did mention that the area of tax reform and the way it is being applied is one area of concern, along with, to a lesser extent, issues in relation to environmental clearance mechanisms and land-related issues. At a broader level, there has been concern in the past in terms of our ease of doing business reforms also in areas like contract enforcement, where our rank is still relatively low compared to other areas like providing online services. We have really sort of moved up the rankings. So those are areas of concern. But let me stress that the largest tax reform in India's history, GST, has just been has now started, has matured, it has delivered. The long lines of truckers at state checkposts have disappeared. We've really started creating a national market in an effective manner. And some of these concerns that are raised will hopefully be resolved in the not too distant future.
Also, give us an update on Tesla, sir. For many months, there's been buzz. Will they set up in this state, that state? What kind of benefits are they seeking? What kind of exceptions they're seeking? Where are we when it comes to bringing Tesla to India?
This is still at a negotiation stage, and in the course of sensitive negotiations like this, we really can't get ahead of ourselves and start talking about what the final formula will be. As I always say about this issue, whatever incentive mechanisms are put in place by government will be applicable for all players and not only for any particular company.
Right. There's also been a wait for the e-commerce policy. Again, when can we expect this to, be notified?
I can only say that it is at a fairly advanced stage, but the exact dates are very difficult to, predict.
From one corporate voice to another, we also have Sunil Bharti Mittal, chairman of Bharti Airtel, to take us through the next leg of spectrum auctions, what they will be participating in, what else needs to be done in terms of business reforms in India, and the sentiment in India Inc. ahead of elections. First, give us a sense of the mood that you're getting from both global clients, Indians that you've met here. What's on top of their minds? Because this is a crucial year. I think 60% of the world's population is going to be voting. A lot of people are talking about how that is a critical factor this election year.
Well, that's certainly the topic of discussion which is coming up in almost all the key meetings. Lots of elections this year, and I think India's upcoming one in May is also attracting everybody's attention, although it's a pretty much kind of a deal where everybody recognizes where this election is likely to go. People are very excited about India's future growth in the next 10 years. The foundation that has been laid out in the last 10 years is now going to see a very beautiful edifice building on top of this. So I think everybody's excited about India, but yet there are concerns here in Davos around geopolitical issues. Ukraine-Russia situation still is hogging the limelight. The Middle East war is hogging the limelight. There are certain people who are being called pessimists, but equally there are, bright spots like India, which is full of optimism. And people are getting a lot of relief that there is at least a large part of the world which is growing at 6-7% and is likely to continue to do that in the next 10 years. So a mixed bag. I think from last year, the overhang of the war has only got more acute with the Middle Eastern situation. But everybody's working towards sorting it out.
Right. In your answer, you mentioned that in India, elections not so much of a concern because more or less people expect continuity there. So is that the sense that, there will be a third term for the current government? And if that is, there will be a certain sense of policy continuity, stability if Mr. Modi is voted back?
I think what do investors or business community, both domestic or international, like? Continuity is very important. Continuity of reform, continuity of investments in infrastructure, ease of doing business. And all that has been very well demonstrated in the last 10 years, increasing with every year. And I think more importantly, what people are recognizing is the sheer scale and ambition of India is so much different from the previous decades that is what is catching the attention of everyone. And if that was the case in the last 10 years, I think the hope and promise of India that there will be continuity, that there will be strong momentum towards acceleration of infrastructure growth and economic development is there. And that's palpable. And you can see we don't have to sell India anymore. People are drawing and getting attracted to us. People are wanting to talk about business in India. How should they invest? Where should they invest? What all they need to do? It's just a lot of excitement out there. And I think that gives you a very clear signal of where people's mind are in terms of where the next election is going.
Right. Coming to telecom, will Airtel buy more spectrum in the upcoming auctions?
Let's see, we have very small chunks of spectrum getting renewed.
Only certain states.
Yeah, so it's really, I think, a large part of our spectrum pool was bought last time. This is a big chunk of spectrum we bought, including very large chunks for 5G. So I think, barring minor participation of some renewable spectrum, I think there doesn't seem to be much need from our side.
Right. How are OneWeb's launch plans panning out, sir?
Well, we are ready. I think the northern part of India has been ready for some time. The southern preparations are going on, but we are still waiting for the market access, which is spectrum allocation, to be finalized. Thankfully, government has decided to give spectrum on an administrative basis, and rightly so, because where are we going to connect? In the oceans, high seas, deserts, mountains, forests, deep rural area where terrestrial networks can never reach. So it's good that we are going to make it more affordable, more importantly, more pervasive in those areas. Imagine that in the coming months, you raise your hand anywhere in the country and you can be connected. You can be having this interview deep down into the forest or up there in the Himalayas where there's no chance of a mobile network.
I'm certainly looking forward to that, sir. Hopefully it will happen. But in terms of the overall telecom market structure, with Vodafone Idea still being in the red, no relief funding in sight, what do you make of it?
Well, all I can say is our industry needs so much capital. It's a very, very capital-intensive industry. We have spent over 30,000 crores this year on 5G. We have spent large amounts of money on 4G in the past. So a lot of investment is required. And they need to shore up their capital base. They need to get some investors. They need to get some more debt. You need serious capital to be in this business. And that sadly has not been the case for the last 2 or 3 years. Although they have bought some 5G spectrum, but you need to roll out network. So that could be, I would say, an overhang on the third operator. I wish them well. I've always said India, the size of a market, India should have 3 operators, but BSNL is coming up, thankfully. And the government is doing a lot to now roll out 4G there. Plans for 5G are afoot. So India will be served well. There will be enough competition. There will be choice for customers. The good news is India's tariffs remain one of the lowest in the world.
Right. How aggressively is Airtel pursuing the fair share demand from OTT companies?
Very aggressively. I think that's a legitimate demand that when we are building, there is a very large
The other debate on net neutrality.
No, absolutely not. That is where some people get mixed up. It's got nothing to do with net neutrality. Net neutrality is that the access to net by the customers on the other side should be neutral. It will remain neutral. That's mandated in the law. You can't even break it. Nobody's saying fair share at the cost of net neutrality. Net neutrality is a given. On top of that, we're talking about fair share. But that's got nothing to do with net neutrality. This is where I think that there's a deception going on. And sometimes the media falls for it and writes headlines. There's no correlation between net neutrality. Yeah, aggressive means wherever we can talk, we talk about it. The large 4-5 big consumers or guzzlers of the network capacity need to step up and contribute towards India's rural burden. I mean, why should the telecom operators who have a much lower ROCE at lower ARPUs be obligated to do everything?
Right. Finally, sir, when can we expect Bharti Enterprises to start its SATCOM services through OneWeb? Any timeline that...
We are ready. As I said, we are ready. Whenever we get the signal, we'll see us in the marketplace.
Right. One thing that you're looking forward to in 2022 is macro trends, micro trades.
Well, I think 5G industrial monetization is yet to pick up anywhere in the world. I hope by 24, before the end this year, there should be some solid use cases which come up and which are not selling pure bandwidth or ARPU game. It's selling solutions, industrial solutions where low latency is required, large capacity are required. So will we be able to get some use cases in our Indian hospitals, especially the rural ones, where you could do live robotic surgeries, you could manage the drones for agriculture, surveys, monitoring, spraying. So a lot of work is going on globally. I hope something strikes where you start to see the benefit of 5G.
Final question, sir. I cannot but ask you about AI. It is the theme this time. And a company like yours has vast data sets accumulated over many years, which actually places you in a very good position. How are you leveraging it across your company and how will you use it going forward?
Well, I think it's a standard protocol that we have followed always. Tie up with the best, have partnerships, deep partnerships. We are almost all the time talking about AI. In the company, 5 internal products have already been launched, 15 are underway. Which go. I don't think so. We will. That's what there's an alliance being built amongst operators. We are a part of that alliance. 8-10 of us are joining hands, and the LLM model, India actually contributes a lot because given the population, the diversity. But we work with Google, we are working with Microsoft, we are working with all the leading AI companies to ensure that we embed them for our use and our customers' use. Ultimately, what do we want from it? Efficiency, accuracy, get networks better, response time faster, call centers, chatbots, and importantly, tuning of networks as the demand rises and falls in various parts of the country. We are actively engaged here in those areas. That do we need to develop our own AI to compete with the other AI providers? No, that's not the ambition.
Right. Final question. There's a joke going around on social media that these days more than WEF invitations, an invitation for the Pran Pratishtha at Ayodhya is more premium. Why do you think, there is so much of excitement around Ram Mandir? Is it something that you will go for?
Well, I'm planning to be there. I think it's been an aspiration of India to see the completion of the Ram Temple, Ram Mandir. And I think all, cutting across religions, should be participating in it, should be looking forward to it. There's no comparison between where we are, and that comes from our heart. You have to be there because you have your belief. Importantly, I think Ram Mandir also represents the goodness of India, the Ram Rajya, which really is not necessarily pure religion itself, but everything that can be captured in a good way for the country, for the people who live there, and for everyone. I think that's what that particular symbol represents. And apni apni aastha and our own devotion towards it, everybody will go, with their own kind of attraction towards Ram. For me, I've grown up praying in the temple every morning when I wake up and go to work, and this is just an extension of that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Mittal, for talking to us. From a government voice to a top corporate voice on the show today, we have Neeraj Kanwar, the London-based Vice Chairman and MD of Apollo Tyres. We managed to speak to him quite rarely, so it was great catching up with him on how demand is playing out. Now, he said while Q3 didn't perform very well for them, he expects an uptick in Q4 as he sees demand going up. He also spoke about how Apollo Tyres is leveraging AI across their operations to improve efficiency. Let's listen in. Neeraj, you have a ringside view to the economy because of the business you're in, tires, trucks, the offtake, the business offtake. Tell us a little about what you're seeing in terms of business sentiment.
Well, in Q3 in India, I'll break it up into India and Europe. India, we were pretty bullish, but when it actually came to the demand cycle was pretty negative. We only saw very small growths in truck and passenger car. Farm as a category is down. So Q3 has not been that optimistic and bullish. On the other hand, Europe, we are seeing some positive pathways made in cars. So OEMs in Europe are up 7%, which is also a matter of EVs playing up a big thing in Europe. So EV vehicles are also increasing by nearly 10%. So Europe, on the other hand, is slightly going up. I'm not comparing it to 2019, but at least from last year, they are up 7% in cars. So as far as Q4 is concerned, I see now India becoming more optimistic than Q3. I believe that in Q4, Apollo will see better results and we will see better growth targets coming out from trucks and from cars. Now we are taking AI into the customer centricity, trying to understand customer behavior. That's another thing that we are looking at. Then comes to the supply chain. So forecasting accuracy becomes very important, and through AI, you'll get demand accuracy and then production planning accuracy. Right now, what happens is there is inventory that gets built up because of non-accuracy of demand. And so artificial intelligence will start teaching us on buying pattern of the consumer and trying to see how we can become much more efficient as far as supply chain is concerned.
Our next guest then is Deloitte South Asia CEO Romal Shetty. Now, he spoke to us about how Deloitte plans to ramp up hiring in India. Let's listen in. Deloitte has also significantly been ramping up its presence in India, and I think GCC is a big trend that we are seeing. It's taken off in a huge way. So tell us about your own hiring plans in India. How big is Deloitte going to be? What kind of businesses are you betting big on?
Yeah, so Deloitte in India is about 120,000 people, right? We are, and which is about 25% of the global workforce of Deloitte. We believe that in the next 3 to 4 years, we will be 30% of the global workforce. So probably closer to 150 to 160,000 people. So we are hiring significantly. Some of the areas, obviously, where we are looking at is, you mentioned about AI. AI clearly is a big area. Second is all in renewables and energy. That I think is one of the largest opportunities as well. Similarly with, for example, cloud and digital and cyber. Those are also some significant areas. We've also invested a lot in M&A because we believe that India is going to see a host of M&A that is going to happen foreign partners wanting to come into India, Indian partners going overseas, including within. And with the work that we're doing with various state governments, we see a lot more focus on bringing investments into the country. So I think those are few areas that we are focusing on.
We also caught up with Neeraj Agarwal, the chairman of PCG for Asia Pacific. Now, we spoke to him to get a sentiment check of what global companies, Indian companies are saying. He gave us an interesting acronym that we are moving to a G3 and a G0 and a T3 world. Now, what does that mean? Let's listen in. Give us a sentiment check of what you're picking up. I think this time a lot of thrust on geopolitics, AI, macros. Obviously, people will talk about uncertainty. But what are you picking up on the world as well as India?
So, look, firstly, pleasure to talk to you. I think if I was to summarize my take on three big macros, I think we are entering what I call a G0 world.
G0.
Yeah, so what do I mean by that? I mean, I think we talk about G7, G20, whatever. I think we're entering a world where people are recrafting the relationships.
Deglobalization.
No, it's not. I wouldn't say deglobalization. It's a new form of globalization, I would call it, because I would hesitate to say deglobalization, because people are forming many-to-many relationships. It's not the historical order, but that's one thing which is happening. We're also possibly entering what I call a T3 world, which is
full of acronyms.
no, I just thought about what I will tell you. So, which is basically means in technology, US, India, and China will play a disproportionate role in the world of tomorrow. I think those two are big changes to my mind, both the G0 and the T3. And beyond that, then I think we should not forget the demographics which work in favor of some countries and which work against. I mean, they're very different demographic starting points of countries. And we cannot, I can talk about interest rates and inflation and other things, but I think to me, the big macros is the geopolitical change, the technological kind of concentration. T3 is that US, India, and China will play a disproportionate role in shaping the technology. These three countries, there will be many other countries which play a role, but these three will play the most defining role in technologies of tomorrow, I believe. And that was not the case some time ago, which I definitely believe is something quite profound.
With that, then, we come to the end of this edition of Moneycontrol at Davos 2024. But we will be bringing you more updates in the coming days. Stay tuned to Moneycontrol.